Welcome to the book club for movies. Amy LaJoie and Samir Roy here. We are kicking off the final week of February and week 49 of
My
Book
goodness,
Club
how this month
movies.
flew.
Yeah.
And the previous 12.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey guys, do you watch anything exciting this weekend, Samir?
Oh, what did I watch? I watched some tennis. No. Yes, me and Amy watched the first episode of Bridgerton.
Yes, we did.
Watched our book club selection, obviously. What else did I watch? Too many things. Oh, some more of that Scientology show. I was revisiting it because there was a episode of How Did This Get Made? They did one of their mini-sodes, a podcast, but they were actually talking to Leah Remini. And so there was like some new updates. So it was like a new interview. And I didn't realize that Leah Remini is still doing a podcast continuing that show. Basically the work of that show. There's just not a show on TV that they're doing. And I'm like, oh crap. I'm like, okay, well, I should listen to this podcast. I'm like, no, I should rewatch the show first because it's been a while. And they're all on Netflix. So I did a few of those. And I did some cleaning around the house. That was my weekend.
I filmed a few videos, did a couple dinners. Yeah, including I did do one for the Philadelphia story, which was our pick from Friday. Yeah, I am back in the old spot today. Just for today, I was filming something earlier, and yeah, but it's still, I got too lazy to move an entire table and my computer into my room every single day. Yeah, so I do still prefer this backdrop, but it was just.
Oh, Walter, that must be a very interesting call. Which Polanski there? Because there's not. It says Paul. I don't know.
Polanski with the Y.
So the one we think it is.
Polanski that we're thinking of.
I didn't remember that he even had a daughter.
Yeah, another fantastic filmmaker, but kind of problematic person, and there are many people like that.
Kind of. Just kind of.
Just kind of. But I did do a dinner for Friday's pick, the Philadelphia story. I made a little video and I haven't posted it yet. I probably will post it. Samir has seen it, but I made it kind of like for something else. But I will probably share it. But Philadelphia story. This was our pick from Friday. So great. This movie, yeah, this movie's adorable. And we were talking a lot about how Jimmy Stewart had won Best Actor for this, and even he was like, why? He was good in this, though. I did think he was like hilarious. Now, whether that was Best Actor Oscar worthy, probably not. But he was good. He was really cute. He had some laugh out loud moments to me of just him. I don't know. He had some great one-liners in this.
I thought he was great in it. Obviously, like we talked about that, like the comparison, like, which performance were they going to give an award to that year? And it was like Henry Ford in Grapes of Wrath or Jimmy Stewart in the Philadelphia story. And if you're gonna, it's unfair, I guess, to compare those two performances. But Jimmy Stewart, I thought, did such a great job. Like he was like, you don't see him in a lot. At least I don't watch the movies I know him for are not comedies. They're usually westerns or they're dramas. Obviously, when I suggested that movie Bell Book and Candle, that is a comedy, and he was very good in that. But that was a totally different performance, totally different character than what we have here. And here, it's like he's young and drunk sometimes. Like he plays a very convincing drunk. I was very surprised by the performance. It had a lot of dimension. It was really, really good. But this movie is just a great movie because there's really high comedy, like the really quick fire dialogue, and Katharine Hepburn is just magical. But there's also like a very dark emotional undercurrent to everything. So there's like always a really good contrast to this very dizzy humor. And you get a a deeper sense of this madcap heiress type character in movies by the likes of George Cukor, as opposed to maybe some lesser filmmakers who would be happy to just have the character be crazy and have one tearful scene, and then that's all the dimension you're going to get. But you really get to see what it's like to grow up in a wealthy family. The subject of wealth itself seems to be being interrogated throughout the movie. Like there's a lot of stuff going on in this film, and really effortlessly. It's not, to me, it doesn't feel like it's using any of these ideas as a cudgel to beat down on your audience with or something. Like, I want you to get this. You know, it's not that kind of obvious, but it's clear and direct, but still not forcing you out of the comedy realm to come to these realizations completely, at least. Because there's some really sad moments, you know, some of the things that these people say to each other, like sometimes in jest, sometimes to hurt one another. It's like really shocking. So all the bon mots that fly are a little bit more effervescent because you have that dark undercurrent to contrast with it. It's, you know, one of George Cukor's best, in my opinion.
I thought this just had an amazing cast with absolutely everyone involved, including the little girl who plays her younger sister. She
oh my God.
Stealing lines.
That actress, I don't remember if we watched The Women on this show.
No,
but I'm sure you've seen the movie. And one of the things that the only thing not the only thing, but one of the problems I have with that movie is that actress, the character that actress plays, it's just a year before this movie. This is why it's like amazing to me, because she is like the most simpering, annoying child. Like, just like, she's not mean child. She's just like so goody two shoes, and it's so overplayed that it's like really grating and annoying. And I just do not feel sympathy for that child. Even when she's like crying because her parents are getting divorced, there's something about the performance, and I don't know. I always really hated that character. And like less than a year later, on same director, because George Cukor directed that too. Mm-hmm. It's like she's grown up into a completely different child, so much more sophisticated, so much better comic timing. Also, I didn't realize that Katharine Hepburn and her speak fluent French.
Yeah, that was
in this movie. I was just like, oh, that's not just I learned these words and practiced them, and I don't know what they mean. That's somebody who knows how to speak this language. But yeah, she is just great. That's like another one of those great kid performances.
Yeah, I'm looking up what Walter said about her here, that she died young. Yeah, she was only 41. How did she die?
Oh, that's crazy. But maybe she was another one of those actresses, like as a child, or actors that as a child wasn't able to transition to a career as an adult as easily. You know, like some kids, it seems to be more modern, because I mean, like lots of the other actors, well, I don't know. We don't know all the kid actors from Hollywood. We just know the successful ones. So we don't have perhaps.
He definitely stopped acting pretty much in 1943, which is only 3 years after the Philadelphia Story was made. And her last credit was in 1951, and that was a TV show called Hollywood Theater Time. So that we get to know her story, as far as, you know, did she quit by choice, which happens with some child actors. It gets to the point where they're like, yeah, I'm good.
Maybe she wanted to go to college or something, you know, maybe she wanted to do something else. Who knows? That is a story worth looking into, because I'm always amazed at the like night and day difference between her performance less than a year before this movie was filmed. That like, wow, she grew like not just a couple inches, she grew as an actress like by leaps. And frankly, when we go back and watch The Women someday, I firmly believe most people will dislike that daughter character in The Woman also. Now, like I said, not because she's mean, but it's just like the squeakiest voiced little goody two shoes type innocent, privileged character. Like, it just was not a likable character for a character that's supposed to be likable. I don't know why George Cukor directed her that way, but he clearly came around to seeing her talents in a brighter light when he made this movie. There's no bad performance in this movie, but it was funny because I watched, you just got your DVD of the Merry Widow in the mail.
Mhm.
You finally ordered it. You sent me a picture. And I had actually watched that this weekend also, like with this movie. And it was funny to see like the fantasy, like Eastern Europe version of like wealth and privilege. And then you get to see like this, what to me almost feels, it's, even though there's a fantasy element in it being a Hollywood movie, it feels like there's a very cold distance from the displays of wealth when he's showing these houses, this house from the inside and out, like all the big decor and the expensive accoutrement everywhere. There's almost like a cold feeling about that kind of wealth in this movie, but you got to see like a almost realistic East Coast wealth image, like, oh, this is a world that people actually live in, as opposed to like, this fantasy world that's been made up for the movies. Like, oh, this is a world of really rich people and they're not so delightful sometimes.
I had read that they had actually been considering a different house for the Lord house, and it was an actual house, and it was some huge estate, and they decided not to film there because they thought we're going to have a hard time selling that people actually live like this. So the real house that they did pick, at least for like exterior scenes, that still was a real house. But
yeah, you can tell with
a more extravagant option.
Still pretty big and still very nicely decorated, perhaps not as big as a real family that wealthy would have. I'd forgotten how violent that moment was.
Oh,
like the actual story, I'd forgotten. I was just like, that just kind of happens casually in this movie. And like, it's weird to see it act like that in a comic context now, because it's like, okay, that's not okay.
Yeah, another thing I read. So we're talking about the opening scene of this movie is, so Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn were married, and they in the movie. And the opening scene is him moving out, and she's helping move his stuff out, and she takes his golf clubs and she just like breaks it in half, and he gets really mad, and she walks back to the house and he storms back in, turns her around, and then just puts his hand on her face and just like clotheslines her, just like phew. And it is kind of a surprise. You're like, whoa. I guess when they filmed that, Katharine Hepburn thought that was like so fun. And there was some other scene they filmed where I think it's like she does something to him, and I think she like actually like it kind of hurt him, and I think she made some snappy comment while they were filming, like, "Oh, well, that's what Cary Grant gets for doing his own stunts," or something like that. But yeah, it's something that certainly by today's standards, I don't think that would fly, even though it is like, it's funny. It's a funny scene, but it's also like, okay, that's borderline abusive. Not even borderline. That's
like, it makes me think that the story in the papers perhaps treated it a little too kindly.
Yeah. But I mean, maybe that scene didn't age well for this, but that's
I was a little surprised by that. I'm like, normally when you see a scene like that now, if somebody does that to another character, it doesn't have like comic music and snappy editing around it. It's like there's usually a much darker feeling they're trying to give a moment of abuse like that. So that took me back a lityotle bit, and I'm like, everyone's just blowing past it. But maybe that's also part of the depiction of this world.
Yeah, and then kind of getting remarried. So
interpersonal.
Yeah, I have to let my cat in.
Kerfuffles that are just common. But yes, I don't know. I hope everybody else watched it. Yeah, right. See, Walter, you agree? Not borderline, it is. But yeah, I was genuinely shocked for that split second. That you're shocked sometimes when you watch old movies and you see like, oh, they just like accept this as okay, and maybe obviously they're never going to remake this movie effectively, but
there's
that is something they would definitely change if they remade it. So, but that's what the story, because they talk about the Philadelphia story, and it's like, wasn't there like, don't you get the idea that that moment somehow their breakup was like tabloid fodder for the society pages kind of thing. And so that's why Jimmy Stewart reporting on this new wedding is like such a come down for him as a writer and a journalist.
Right.
What I did like also is that, like Lubitsch, Cukor has like a sort of more mature view of adult relationships. Like he doesn't see someone who maybe, you know, everybody is entranced with Tracy Lord. That name also makes me laugh because when I hear the name Tracy Lord, I mean, you just add the S onto it and you have the legendary adult video film star of the 80s. So it's always like, I always like make very sure Tracy Lord stops there, you know, Lord. But she's like this they keep talking about like she's a magical creature, she's a queen, and you can tell like, you know, her character is like, well, I also want to like be looked at as a human being, which finally people acknowledge towards the end. She's not just this magical, captivating, otherworldly thing. She's a human being with a heart and a mind. But that she and the woman that Jimmy Stewart is there with, the photographer who has some pretty great plain costumes, like I'm like, you're supposed to be kind of plain-ish, I guess, for against this high society place, but you could tell that there's like an artsy style to her. I just liked that character a lot. But she kind of accepts the idea that Jimmy Stewart was entranced. And Katharine Hepburn's character understands, like, no, I get it, men. This happens with men. You kind of get that feeling from her. That's why she was like, no, I'm not going to marry you. Even though you've asked me. How would you feel, though, if you were that other girlfriend and just watch this happen, and then he just walks back to your side and it's like, okay, now we're going to leave this crazy rich people land and go back to the real world? Like, would you accept that you got caught up in the whirlwind of insanity of these crazy people and take this person back? Or would you be like, you know what?
Yeah. He's like, just forget I ever
don't know if I can forgive someone who proposed to someone else in front of me.
Yeah. I mean, he is Jimmy Stewart, though, so.
But he's also, I don't know, maybe like, the content of someone's character beyond this one moment. It was a little more complex, and they kind of tease you out, like, that you think that she's going to get back together with Cary Grant no matter what. And then you see this like genuine bond building with Jimmy Stewart, and you think, oh, are they going to be the couple that gets together? And then you think you're going to root for that, and then it doesn't happen. And like, the audience and Tracy kind of come to the realization at the same time. I think it's tricky to do that. I thought it was very clever because I was firmly convinced that, obviously this is what this movie, I try to separate myself from my knowledge of the ending. So I didn't look it up again to remind myself. But I totally had that moment where I was like, oh, maybe she is going to be with Jimmy Stewart. No, she does belong with Cary Grant like I did.
Oh my gosh. Well, if people haven't seen this movie, it's very delightful. Available on HBO Max. So check it out. But let's go ahead and talk about our man crush Monday, Mr. Daniel Kaluuya. Look at this photo.
Ooh, that is a beautiful photo. I love that.
Got a good photo of him. I'm going to clean my cat's litter box really quick because I let her in here. And she just did something real bad in it, and it's in the same room as me, so I'm going to be right back.
Don't put litter box in the closet. Don't do that.
Yeah. Anywho, I'll be back.
Okay. Well, while Amy cleans up after her kitty. See, that's why you can't always trust cats. Like, who's really the master? Who's cleaning up whose crap? But anyways, this week's choice. So we were kind of torn on who to choose for today because at first we were thinking of one of the other actors in this movie, but then we realized, I don't know, me and Amy came to the decision that Daniel would be the better choice. And of course, I'm sure most of you know Daniel Kaluuya from Get Out. That's the most famous movie that he's been in by far. Which, if you haven't seen that movie, like, what's going on? what have you been doing? Join the rest of the world and watch like one of the modern masterpieces of horror filmmaking. And his performance in that film is a large reason for its success, because you wouldn't be able to go along with that story if you weren't firmly in his shoes. But he is a tremendous actor that really came to prominence in the wider audience's minds because of Get Out. And me and Amy have been waiting very patiently to watch the movie that we are going to be talking about today, which is Judas and the Black Messiah. I wanted to watch it the first day that it was released, but unfortunately we decided to wait so we could watch it together. But let me see if I can bring up, and usually Amy is the one who gets all the facts from the breakdown from Wikipedia. But one thing that surprised me when I first started seeing him in interviews is that he actually is English.
I'm back.
He is got a British accent, and you would never know that from watching his performances.
Yeah, and actually, if you watched anything from SNL this week, or this last weekend, which Regage on Page hosted, there's a sketch about Black actors who are British, and another SNL cast member portrays Daniel Kaluuya. Yeah, I'm back, guys. Sorry about that. It needed to be done for my sanity.
Oh, and Luke, you're right. Lakeith Stanfield was the other option, because I love Lakeith Stanfield also.
Yeah. We were thinking of doing a different Lakeith Stanfield movie, and then we saw like, oh yeah, he's coming out in this movie Judas and the Black Messiah, and then we're like, well, if we do Judas and the Black Messiah, we really should do Daniel Kaluuya, who we haven't talked about specifically yet. As Samir had mentioned, Get Out was certainly he'd been acting for many years before that, but that was definitely his big breakthrough role as far as like an international thing goes. He was nominated for Best Actor at the Oscars. That's how a lot of people were really introduced to him. He is British. He was born February 24th, 1989 in London. His parents are from Uganda. He also has had a lot of experience and interest in writing. He used to write some plays. There was a couple TV shows he was on, and he co-wrote some of the episodes. So he has a little bit of a theater background as well. His first big thing that he was really in was he was on a couple seasons of that weird British show, Skins.
Oh, I remember that show.
Yeah, I still have never seen. I just remember hearing that it was like, oh, have you watched this show, Skins? It's like really controversial and things like that. So he was on that.
Funny to hear people say that.
Yeah. The first thing I ever remember seeing him in was Sicario, which I don't think anyone watching now.
Walter did.
Well, that's something here's someone worked on him on Sicario. Yeah, that was the first thing I ever remember seeing him in, and that was one of my that's like one of my all-time favorite movies. I think that movie is so awesome. And almost a year ago, I actually had talked about that movie when I focused on Emily Blunt for this talk. But I remember seeing him in that and being like, who's this guy? Like, I haven't seen him before. He's with all these other name actors. And then the next thing I had seen him in was an episode of Black Mirror, which had actually been filmed several years before. But Netflix at that point, they had purchased it and acted like it was their big, great idea. They were like, actually, they bought this from someone else. But the first few episodes that are season 1, which were made in the UK, he is in one of them. And I guess it was seeing that episode possibly after it was re-released on Netflix, that is what really caught Jordan Peele's attention, and then he cast him in Get Out. But prior to when Get Out came out, he'd been actively acting for like 10 years.
Yeah. Well, you can tell when you watch the movie, that's not the work of somebody who just started acting a couple of years ago and took a bus out to Hollywood to make their dreams come true. You know, this is somebody who knows what they're doing as an actor. Like, there's just a calm and confidence about him on screen. Like, you're never gonna see him. There's some actors that you can tell like they're kind of a little bit lost in moments here and there. They're like, I'm not sure what to do in this moment, so I'm just gonna make this choice to get me through this scene and then get on to the next one where I know exactly what I'm doing. Like you could tell there was none of those kinds of gaps in the performance when we saw him in Get Out. If there had been, I don't know if that movie would have been as big a success because, in horror, if you have an actor who's unsure in any moment, that just breaks the spell of a horror movie, and then it can help it veer into camp very easily. But you didn't get any of that. Obviously the movie was well cast. It was cast for a reason. This was not, like I said, not a break. This is not an actor who just started, who's getting their break in this film. This is someone who worked a long time to get their break. Like most actors. Most actors have to work a long time, and they all have stories like they've all had the experience of working a soap opera or like that horrible commercial shoot or other weird things, or when you worked, they've got all that. I wonder, was he a server? Like so many actors. I don't know. That's something you didn't do, though. I don't know if you did the server.
I have never been a server in my life, but that's also been part of my privilege of my parents being super financially supportive of me and me not really being in a position where I had to do that. But that is certainly the struggling job that I don't even have the upper body strength, honestly. I feel like, to lift trays. I'm at awe of people who are able to do that. Because I have no muscles.
Oh, you get used to it.
I'm not sure exactly what his training was. I know he worked a lot in improvisational theater, which I think with that too, that doesn't even necessarily mean comedy. Like you could improvise a dramatic work as well.
Yes.
But yeah, but I don't know if he got into there or not. Yeah, but he certainly he's been an actor to watch in recent years, and he's going to continue to be. Luke said he's young, right? Yes, he's relatively young. He's about 31. He's not like an 18-year-old, but he's only 31 and has already had this amazing career, has already been nominated, and is already getting some Oscar buzz for today's film. But his career is just going up and up. He was definitely one of my favorite people in Black Panther. I loved his character in that. And yeah, he's great. Let me see what are his upcoming projects. So coming up, okay, he's doing something else. Okay, I like how IMDb does this. It says untitled Jordan Peele horror event pre-production, and then in parentheses it says rumored.
I hate those credits on IMDb, the rumored credits.
Yeah, and then this says plot kept under wraps. So whatever upcoming thing Jordan Peele is doing, which also has Keke Palmer,
rumored.
Yes,
to be rumored, in it.
Maybe. But otherwise, he's in pre-production. Looks like he took 2020 off, which is probably good. I'm not sure how much he's going to be coming out in this year, except for today's movie. But he's in pre-production for something else called The Upper World, which also looks like it's based on a novel, and otherwise doesn't really have any info. But he's been in some other great films in recent years. He was in Widows, for those who have seen that. He's had some smaller roles in things like Kick-Ass 2, which I saw that movie for Jim Carrey. I don't really remember him in it. I'm going to have to watch that again. And then he's been in a bunch of short films and a bunch of British TV shows. And if people haven't seen his Black Mirror episode, I remember it being really good. I think it's like episode 2, like season 1, episode 2 or 3 or something. But if you haven't seen Black Mirror, all the episodes are standalone. So you could just go ahead and watch his episode and be disturbed, because all of Black Mirror episodes are disturbing in their own way.
Very upsetting show.
Yeah, but let's talk about today's film. Yeah, we've been really waiting to watch this. We probably should have had this be last week's film, but didn't work out that way.
Right? I'm not sure why we did that, but it's just how it
Making
happened.
ourselves wait an extra week to watch this movie. But Judas and the Black Messiah, this came out a few weeks ago. If you're fortunate enough to be in an area where theaters are open, you could maybe catch this in theaters. Otherwise, it is available on HBO Max. Bill O'Neill infiltrates the Black Panther Party per FBI agent Mitchell and J. Edgar Hoover as party chairman Fred Hampton ascends, falling for a fellow revolutionary en route. A battle wages for O'Neill's soul. So almost sounds like the opposite of Black Klansman. As far as like, I'm going to pretend to be in this group and I'm going to infiltrate them. This was directed by Shaka King, who has also done, what else has he done? He's done a lot of TV shows. He's done a lot of short films. I believe this is his first, looks like this is his first feature film.
Wow.
Well, let's see how this turns out.
We'll see how he does with that. Because, you know, we've seen some other movies that are by first-time filmmakers. What did this director work on before, though? Were they like, did they work in theater?
Films and several TV show episodes. Oh, this is interesting. So this has already been nominated for one SAG Award and one Golden Globe, and Daniel Kaluuya has been nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the SAG Awards and Best Supporting Actor at the Golden Globes, and it's also been nominated for Best Original Song at the Golden Globes. And the Oscar nominations have yet to be released. But Daniel Kaluuya,
that new movie about Billie Holiday is about that. I hear that there's a lot of fictitious things in that movie, like a lot of problematic non-facts apparently were worked into that plot. But that's the basic story. But yes, continue. Sorry.
As we've already mentioned, we had considered doing Lakeith Stanfield for today, and he's someone that we still might want to focus on with just him because he's also a very talented actor who is getting a lot of attention. Of course, he was also in Get Out, had a smaller role in that.
He was the first person that he meets who tells him the name of the, it's like roll credits, he's the one who says the name of the
he's the first, you see him get abducted right at the beginning of the movie. He's walking through this neighborhood and the car pulls up and kidnaps him.
I mean when Daniel Kaluuya goes to the house,
I think
he meets him after he's been erased.
I guess we'll have to see with the movie, but it's interesting that Daniel Kaluuya is getting top billing in this and then is only getting nominated for a supporting role. I wonder.
Well, I mean, that's just like pretty standard in Hollywood. They'll give top billing to the biggest name, whether or not that person is actually the lead. So it's very possible that the Keith Stanfield may actually just be the lead in the film.
That's quite possible.
Or it could be, who knows?
There have been so many things too where, we're like, okay, this person definitely should have been nominated for a supporting role instead of best actor and vice versa. Because I don't know. Sometimes I think they do that of like, well, we already have enough people in this category, but we still really want to nominate him. So let's just nominate him for supporting actor. It's like, okay, but he actually has a big role. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see. Just how big of a role he has in this.
I'm still going to guess it's a pretty big role if he's on the poster like that. But it is a weird poster because it's like the person who's front and center literally is Lakeith Stanfield, but the much larger image of anybody is like Daniel Kaluuya hovering over him from behind. So we'll get to see if there's what kind of meaning comes out of the movie from see if this has any hints to us. I love it when there's something like that buried in a poster and you don't realize it till after you watch the movie. You're like, oh, so we'll see if that, obviously the sign behind them is it's all power to the people tells you enough. And we know the basic gist of the story and the time setting, but I'm curious to see if there's anything else being alluded to there, or if they're just magnifying Daniel Kaluuya because he's the more famous name. Because Lakeith Stanfield hasn't really had a lead role in anything. He hasn't really tried to lead a movie.
His lead role has been Sorry to Bother You, which is another film that we had almost put in on our calendar for this month.
Yes, that was I think we chose this over that.
Yes. Yeah, we did end up picking this because we were excited to talk about something new. And Sorry to Bother You it's good, but it's also just like I feel like I need to watch it again. Yeah, but I don't know, if possible, while brand new releases are being put online, it is kind of fun to have us all see a brand new movie. And I really don't know anything about this movie. I've purposefully avoided reading any reviews about it. I just know in general it's supposed to be good. That's it.
Yeah, we'll see. But I did the same thing. I didn't want anyone else's opinions of the movie. I didn't want to read any aspects of the plot. That's what I like to watch movies in that way. I like to go in without a ton of knowledge about it. I'm not one of those people who wants to go in like, oh, I heard that when they were filming this, they did this thing in this one scene where, it's like, because it sort of takes you out of just being able to engage in the story. When you think you already know so much about a movie, it's like, no, just go in, and let the movie do its work. And, if you need all of that info beforehand to go into a movie for the movie to be entertaining to you, or to take, for the story to actually envelop you, like, I feel like that's a really weird way to watch movies. So I did the same, just like you. I want to go in fresh, let all the impressions hit me without anybody else's opinions. Or, also, you never know when a review will give away a really crucial thing in the movie that you don't want ruined for you.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like the end of the movie. But I'm like, this is based on some story. So we can look up the end of this story, this particular story, if we wanted to. And I think most people pretty much know how it ends anyways, but there's a lot of stuff you don't know. So just let the filmmakers show you how they want to tell you. And then we can see if they did a good job or not afterwards.
Agreed. Well, please check this out tonight. Again, available right now, I think only on HBO Max if you want to watch it online. Otherwise, again, maybe you could see it in theaters tonight.
If you live in a place like, where it's safe to go to a theater and they're open.
Yeah. I can't wait for movie theaters to be back open here. Please check out our Patreon if you are so inclined to do so. Put that over in the comments. Tomorrow we will be discussing this movie after we watch it, and then we are doing our final Director Tuesday for the month, and that is director John Singleton, who I really don't know a whole bunch about, so I'll be learning about him tomorrow too. The film for tomorrow is Poetic Justice, with two music greats who also act. So it'll be a fun show tomorrow. All this week, we've got some fun things planned, finishing up our last week of February, where we have mostly been focusing on Black History Month and romance and cats and everything in between.
We packed a lot into one little month.
Yeah, but Judas and the Black Messiah tonight. Hope you all enjoy it, and I'm assuming we'll enjoy it. Again, it looks pretty amazing, and we'll see you all tomorrow.